With the S&P 500 at 5,200, unemployment at 3.9%, home prices nearing all-time highs, and inflation at 3.48%, there just isn't a lot of evidence to suggest that the economy is in trouble. But in one corner of the finance world, recent developments have turned heads, and using freshly minted data, there seems to be another side to this story, one in which the consumer is failing. Outside of real estate, stocks, and wages, the number one portion of the economy that is arguably the most important is consumer spending. According to commonly referenced data, consumer spending accounts for about 70% of US economic activity. This giant piece of the economic pie is quite literally the entire economy, and according to some new data, it may be in a serious downswing. We've seen a couple of unique companies report earnings these last few weeks, and in a lot of cases, it seems that they're hinting at some troubles brewing in the macro environment. Etsy, for example, just reported their Q1 earnings, and they have made it loud and clear that something just is not right with the consumer. In their Q1 report, the word macro is mentioned 11 different times, and each time it's emphasized that the company is facing macroeconomic pressures that ultimately are reducing consumer spending. It can be argued that the main point of the discussion was that the consumer is feeling financially strained, often having little money left after covering essentials like food, fuel, housing, and childcare. Etsy operates primarily in the discretionary sector, selling items that are not necessities. This makes it a key indicator of economic health. When consumers have surplus cash, they freely purchase non-essential goods like customized wooden wall maps of their favorite cities. On the other hand, when finances are tight, these discretionary items are among the first to be cut from budgets, serving as an early warning sign of economic downturns. And this is no secret for investors. They've been selling for years now, and things have only gotten worse. Since the peak in November of 2021, Etsy stock has fallen by over 70%, and even if we look at a closer time frame, since 2023, the stock has fallen closer to 50%. The market is clearly aware that the consumer just isn't as strong as we think, and more declines may be coming soon. And it's not just Etsy feeling this wave of consumer spending decline. You have companies like Starbucks who are also feeling the pain. In their last report, the coffee giant went on to say that last quarter's problems are still here, especially in big markets. Consumers are spending less, especially those who don't shop often. This slowdown in spending, combined with a gloomy economic outlook, is causing fewer people to visit stores, and it's a problem that many businesses are dealing with right now. Similar to Etsy, Starbucks has also faced significant market declines. Since its highest point in 2021, Starbucks stock has fallen by 39%, with a sharp 27% drop since November alone due to these recent challenges. If we examine the specific figures, such as transactions, it's clear that in North America, comparable store sales have declined by about 6%. This represents a significant shift from previous quarters. For context, during the same period last year, Starbucks comparable store sales had increased by 6%. One of the first things people will cut out when they're facing financial difficulty is premium coffee. I mean, today at Starbucks, you can easily spend $6 on a simple drink that is priced more like a light meal. If we take a look at their menu right now, you can see that prices have gotten simply out of control. A standard size summer refresher is now running you $6.45. A vanilla sweet cream nitro cold brew is $5.75, and a simple, nearly bite-sized bacon and egg sandwich is $5.45. And you know they'll be asking you for a tip at the end as well. These prices, along with a myriad of other issues, are causing customers to finally wave the white flag, and it's all starting in that premium retail space. Things like Etsy, Starbucks, and other so-called discretionary of discretionaries will feel all the pain first, but it's not just companies' earnings that are suffering. The famous Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index is also taking a fall. This indicator has been around since 1960, and it's essentially a monthly survey where the university conducts a minimum of 500 interviews across the continental US, asking 50 core questions covering 3 areas: personal finances, business conditions, and buying conditions. And as you can see, these consumer conditions fell to an all-time low in the summer of 2022 and then slowly started making a rebound. But just when it looked like we were out of trouble, the tables turned once again. The dotted line shows the true number, while the blue one shows the 3-month moving average. As you can see, the last reading showed a massive fall, with the index dropping nearly 13% month over month, showcasing that there has been a monumental swing in the markets. To many people, people, this, along with those earnings we showed earlier, is a strong signal that something has shifted. Remember, consumer spending makes up nearly 70% of the economy, and with such a sudden tide shift, everyone is wondering what will happen next. According to figures like Peter Schiff, there are strong reasons to be very worried. Take a listen to a recent interview he did for NTD's Business Matters. This full video can be found in the description below.
Peter, great to talk to you again. Consumer sentiment out today, lowest in 6 months it looks like. And Peter, let me just point out, it's not just that. The most recent jobs report, sharp drop in jobs added. Unemployment up. The most recent GDP estimate coming in low. And just yesterday, jobless claims, highest in 8 months. Peter, what's happening here?
Well, you know, if consumers only knew just how much worse it's going to get, confidence would be even lower. They're actually a little bit too optimistic about the future. What they're really concerned about is rising inflation and high interest rates. And the problem is interest rates aren't really high yet. And unless the Fed raises rates even more, inflation is going much higher. So the Fed is in a box if it tries to raise consumer confidence, because if it tries to fight inflation, which is worrying the consumer, it's got to raise interest rates. But that's already worrying the consumer. And so higher rates to fight inflation may cause confidence to fall even further. On the other hand, if the Fed doesn't raise rates or cuts them as planned, inflation is going to get a whole lot worse, which means consumer confidence can only go down. The Fed is planning on reducing rates, despite the fact that rates are still too low. But the problem is Americans have so much debt that even these low rates are too high. That's the main reason the Fed stopped hiking, because we started to see another financial crisis as the banks started to fail. And the U.S. government is in a bind fiscally. You know, every time the Fed raises rates, it causes budget deficits to widen, because now the government has to spend more interest to cover its debts. Plus, it also weakens the economy, so tax receipts go down. So as the budget deficits are swelling, that puts more upward pressure on inflation. And so as the Fed tries to fight inflation by hiking rates, it just ends up making it worse.
So as you just heard there, Peter believes that this consumer sentiment shift is just the start of a more massive problem in the economy. He's well aware that consumers are giving up, and the implications this will have on the broader economic picture are still yet to be seen. We know that federal data is usually slow to react to changes like this, which is why many analysts look to things like the Starbucks earnings report and Etsy to get a better picture. It's pretty clear that at least in the premium sector, we're witnessing some significant macro shifts that will undoubtedly bleed into at least some aspects of other spending. And while today's earnings still remain okay, we will see just how much things change as more and more companies report their Q1 earnings later this month and going into summer. With more data flowing in, the baseline case will grow stronger and stronger, and that's really when we'll see the true worry in the markets come out in the form of selling. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment below letting me know what you're seeing in the general economy as well.